the great Carl Banks. And Carl, you played with one of the all-time New York icons, obviously, in Lawrence Taylor. So as forever sports royalty in this town, what do you think when you see somebody like Aaron Judge staying?
I think it was the right thing to do. I am so excited for Yankee fans and for New York because he is the type of guy that you need. He's the stabilizing kind of superstar in this town. And, you don't want to become the team that can never hold on to your big stars, the institutional type players that kind of defines an era of your team. And obviously it's about championships for the Yankees. So they're going to have to continue to put players around him, and he's going to have to do his part as well to bring a World Series to the Bronx. But he's the guy. I mean, I couldn't imagine if Mr. Steinbrenner, rest in peace, was around, that he would even consider letting Judge walk. I think it was the right thing to do, though.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that, and it just sets an example for future stars, whatever they may be. Let's move over to the Giants. Last week was frustrating, but I'm sure it was positive in some regards because they didn't lose, but they also could have won that game and should have won that game. But something happened after the game that I think is its first test, like real in-season test for Brian Daboll, and that was Tay Crowder and I forget the DB, one of the DBs, tweeting about like get me out of here.
Williams.
Yeah, Rodarius. How should and how do you think Brian Daboll is going to handle that?
The same way he's continued to handle it. There's a reason why these players don't play. I mean, he's been very transparent, meaning Brian Daboll and his staff. It's a meritocracy. You practice, you execute in practice, you play. I have a love-hate relationship with Tay Crowder because
I do too.
He's
Carl.
fundamentally inept most of the time, but he can make some plays for you. But if you're not approaching the week the way that they want you to, and Wink Martindale, you see they have no problem replacing you with anybody.
That's right.
That can just do their job. So I don't know the intricacies of that, but just the fact that he would do something like that tells me, they didn't feel he was ready to go, so they didn't play him. Yeah. And I don't think they're going to deviate from that. And let me just say this with due respect to Tay Crowder, you're not even good enough to be screaming, or let me just say you're not consistently good enough to be screaming anything of the sort. Nobody, I mean, that's the tree that fell in the forest right there. Nobody heard it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting too because it's almost like this Giants team, despite sitting right in playoff position, right, is still willing to cut its nose off and to spite its face for the culture of the locker room. And I think, honestly, that's more important, even though we're still fighting here to get into the postseason with the Eagles and then Washington again and obviously the rest of the schedule. That ultimately is the most important thing out of this season, correct?
It is. But you have to approach it the right way. So, listen, if you don't have guys that can focus and do what they're supposed to do, they're more of a deterrent to your mission to get to the playoffs than they are an asset, because that's more crap you got to deal with. So it's like, okay, you're not playing, go home. We're going to work with what we have, guys who are focused on being there. But yeah, I mean, they're going to put players out there. They're going to prepare them. We know that they're shorthanded from a talent perspective to begin with, but they're going to give their best efforts.
Carl, we talked to Julian Love yesterday on the show, and I brought this up to him. I want to get your thoughts because you've been around the game forever. So one of the things I think we all love about Daboll is that he's real, he's fiery, he's not some pre-programmed, laptop that just spits out, data points just to placate people. We can't stand that. We read right through it. He's fiery. But there's also a shelf life for that. If, depending upon the locker room, depending upon the degree of success that the franchise encounters, do you think that as he gets a little deeper into his head coaching tenure that he's going to have to kind of, I don't want to say change his personality, but soften or pick his spots maybe a bit more, or can you just roll that way all the time?
Listen, he's got the players motivated. They're playing for him. He speaks a language that they understand. And if that message starts to wear, if guys get older and they're like, we've heard this before, great. He'll probably have to change it, but right now he is doing what is necessary to connect with his players. I mean, listen, he's got the same or if not worse roster than the other guy had, and the other guy couldn't connect with him, and he and his staff are getting the most out of these players. They have a plan for them, and that's the difference too. When you're a coach with a plan for your players, your rhetoric does not fall on deaf ears.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
they're in a partnership together right now.
Makes sense, man. So we're talking to Carl Banks here on the Fan, of course, Tiki and Tierney show. But actually, take us back to Sunday, because we asked Julian. Tiki obviously touched on this when we started the show on Monday, what it's like to tie a game. So we know what it felt like in the locker room because we asked Julian and we heard the players talk about it. When you took off your headsets on Sunday around 4:20-ish, whatever it was, did you feel like the Giants choked one away, or that they were in a decent spot given that the tie could actually help them down the road? How did you process the tie?
You're literally left like with this feeling of what just happened, because and Sean O'Hara said it best. He's like, this is it's like a movie that's to be continued in the season finale. Literally, it could be their season finale in 2 weeks. That's what it really came down to. It's a cliffhanger, which should not have been. But when I took my headphones off, I was like, okay, well, they had some chances to win this thing, but I guess we'll continue to, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, but think about this. Like, if you're down 17-3, you claw back, you scrap out a tie, it feels differently than when you have the lead late and there's a couple of calls that some fans and some other people question. Like, to me, it didn't feel like a loss, but it definitely felt a little more negative than positive. That was
It didn't feel like a win.
No, I know that. But it felt more
here's the
negative.
thing. Yeah, but you're not wrong.
Okay.
The thing is, when you win or lose, you look at the film and you say, this is the reason why we won, or this is the reason why we lost. You look at this film, especially in overtime, and it's the reason why you didn't win or lose. You're looking at opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
You just got to. I mean, you could point to like 4 different situations where they could have won the game, but they didn't. But they didn't lose.
Yeah.
So
I got you.
There's a couple of guys offensively who are being evaluated because their deals are, I think, paramount. One is Daniel Jones. The other one's Saquon Barkley. And we've talked about Daniel a lot. But I think what have you seen the last couple of weeks with Saquon? Because as I watch it, it's almost like he stopped trusting what was happening in front of him. And so he's hurried, right, to get to the line of scrimmage. And he's missing some things here or there. Do you feel the same way? And can this get back on track? Because that's how they were winning, running the football and controlling the game and dominating in the trenches. We haven't seen it really consistently the last 3 or so weeks.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Tiki. And I think the trust comes from the revolving door of understanding how your guys are blocking, not how you draw plays, but as a back, I'm sure you have kind of a feel for how a certain guy likes to block and how you want to move, and they don't have that consistency right now. And given the fact that there's just nothing on the outside of the offense, outside of Darius Slayton, that can literally threaten a defense that can remove a few players out of the box. So they're just saying, hey, we're going to put a few more guys in the box, and we're going to clog it up and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. So, Carl, let's imagine that, whether you bump into them or one of them shoots you a text, whether it's Shane or Dable, end of the year, and they say, hey, listen, let's go grab a steak, maybe get a little scotch, smoke a cigar, maybe a little River Palm, you know which one I'm talking about, and and you guys go out to eat, and they say, all right, Carl, you know this team as well as anybody. You've seen every snap that we played this year. What position should we target with our first-round pick? What would you say to them? What do you think is the number one target?
If you're picking, if they're a playoff team, they're going to be picking below 15, right?
Yep.
So I would find quality interior linemen and wide receivers. Okay. And then I would, you know what? The linebacker position in the NFL is not as paramount as it used to be. So you'll find some quality players later on in the draft, but I would say interior line and wide receiver are the 2 areas that I would really focus on.
Makes sense. You going to watch the Johnnies tonight or what? First Big East game, dude. You locked in?
Yes, I am.
Attaboy.
I am locked
Are you going?
in.
Or are you going to the game?
I am not. I'm not.
Well, listen, I can help you get tickets.
I'll let you know when it's
know
time for
anybody.
me to go because I will be reaching out to you for seats. So
yeah. No,
I'll
listen,
let
you know that. Whatever you need. I just need a starter jacket. I've been waiting years for that.
I thought you had one.
No, what do you mean?
needed one for the.
No.
You need one for your kid.
I do need one. It would be great from Santa, but that's something we can talk about.
Did I not give you a St. John's jacket?
You did not. You did not.
I will give you the one just hanging in my office.
No, I can't take it. No, I'm not doing it.
Oh, you can. It doesn't fit me. I'm a
it,
2X and you're an XL.
Oh,
yeah, and he could get another one
that
really
works.
easily.
Yeah, and I can get another one.
Carl Banks, two-time champ, voice of the Giants. You got it,
appreciate
buddy.
you, brother.
Thank you very much. You agree with that? Like, because I think that's interesting. You sit down, he's seen every snap, wide receiver, interior lineman. Is that something that you think makes sense for the Giants right now?
Well, I mean,
number one target.
Number one target for me is a wide receiver. Are you saying linebacker? I'm saying you need somebody. And I said this on Monday, and I was so frustrated. I told you what my situation was like after the tie of the weekend. I was like, I want Devontae Adams. I want Chase. I want Jamar Chase. Give me somebody who's going to go get a football because it makes you so much better as an offense. So to me, you have to have that baller wide receiver. I get the linebacker. I really do. Because if you have a really good one, like the Urlachers of the world or whoever, over the last 15 years or so have been elite in that middle, it changes the personality of the defense. Mm-hmm. But to me, you got to have that alpha wide receiver, and the Giants don't have one.